What's up, y'all? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden, and I know what you're thinking. 3, 4, 5 episodes in one day? Yeah, I'm sick, and I don't know what else to do with myself. I'm cooped up, so I'm going all Bo Burnham on you and losing my mind a little bit, and we're going over a lot of news today because I have nothing else to do. So I'm going to do a power rankings episode here. We're going to do the top 5 journalists, lefty journalists, and a notable mention. Now, that does not mean that it's the top 5 people in terms of their body of work totally. As you guys know, power rankings have to do with like a hot streak or a cold streak that a team is on. So the number one in the power rankings doesn't necessarily mean the best journalist of all time. It's just who's doing good work lately. And I brought receipts. I have some things I want to show you guys. These are people that have written great articles lately and are putting out great content. And I'm just going to boost them and send you their way because they've been doing great work. So, yeah, by the end of the night, I'll be, like Bo Burnham, singing you the news and the power rankings via show tunes. I was drinking a lot of water earlier to stay hydrated. I have now switched to vodka. So we'll just see how tonight turns out. I might just lose my mind and start, going ape shit and giving you guys a whole bunch of weird content. So let's get with the power rankings now, shall we? The notable mention is Matt Taibbi. Now, I've read his book, The Divide, on the show before for the last book club. It was awesome. You guys know that I like him. He's part of Useful Idiots with Katie Halper. And he's recently broken away from Rolling Stone, which is only going to improve his work, and he's a good writer. Very funny. The reason I'm ranking him is because he recently was on Bill Maher's show on HBO and ran circles around him on Russiagate. And the reason it was such a good interaction is because Bill Maher was adamantly trying to convince Taibbi that there was some there when it comes to linking Trump with Putin. And Matt Taibbi just knows way more than Bill Maher does, and he just does not laugh, doesn't barely crack a smile. And Bill Maher, he relies largely on his audience, his studio audience, and the rest of the panel being ignorant on this stuff. And then he just like gets them to laugh with really shitty ass jokes. And Matt Taibbi is completely like unfazed by everything that Bill Maher is saying in the interaction and runs circles around him when it comes down to like the specifics on Russiagate, which he knows far more than Bill Maher does on. So there was an awesome breakdown by the Vanguard. That's where I actually saw the interaction first. And kudos to Matt Taibbi for standing his ground and not giving Bill Maher, don't even crack a smile when he makes these dumbass jokes and starts to peddle that propaganda on his show. That's exactly what Taibbi did. That's why I'm ranking him. So no particular article, but that interaction in and of itself was worth a notable mention. Good job, Matt. All right, we're going to go from the bottom up, the top 5, starting with number 5. And this guy I already ranked earlier this week because he did such a good job, and I'm ranking him again in a different power rankings because this article was just that important, and that's Unapologetic. He was his Substack article on the Squad sending $13 million towards DNC consultants was, according to their FEC filings, is a bombshell report that almost no one's picking up. But it's gotten some good, traction considering no one, he's a very small YouTuber, but his Substack should absolutely be subscribed to. This article was wonderful. That's why I'm saying it again. And like I said, AOC, Jayapal, Ro Khanna, all of the Justice Democrats, $13 million has been sent towards DNC consultants. Exactly the same way that Nina Turner took a lot of our donation money when she was running for Congress and threw it into a fucking bonfire. And what he says in this article is, you can tell a lot about a Justice Democrat not only by who's donating to them, but who they give their money to afterwards. And it's wonderful. So subscribe to Unapologetic on YouTube, and his Substack is awesome. Number 5. Number 4 is Richard Medhurst, specifically for an article that he wrote on, he has broken down rotating villain theory, and what he does in the article, which is titled Rotating Villain, How the Squad Serves the Democratic Party, which is on his Substack, it's awesome. He's pointing out and breaking down all of the Squad's votes since Biden got into office and showing you how they do it is they just alternate the heroes and the villains so that no one takes too much flack for a certain vote and no one gets too much praise for a certain vote, and they always vote the way the establishment wants them to and never block anything. So beyond that, he also did a 3-hour and 5-minute live stream today, which I was in for over 2 hours, which was awesome, breaking down numerous things that are happening as far as Syria, like Israel bombed Syria. He talked about rotating villain for a long portion of that. broke down the Iron Dome vote, and so my man has just been raking. And you guys know Richie, I always rank him very high in my power rankings as far as journalists go. He's on YouTube, and I'll post a link to his Substack, and I highly recommend, I'm going to post a link to all these articles as well. This article was absolutely awesome, and highly breaks down what Glenn Greenwald has always been talking about and what I've talked about numerous times on the show, which is they never allow one of the squad members to be too much of a villain nor too much of a hero. But they always vote for the establishment and never vote as a block to block anything the establishment wants. And Richie does a great job breaking that down. So, number 4, Richard Medhurst. Number 3, and this is a specific person, but also a shout out to his organization, which is Ben Norton from the Gray Zone. Now, the Gray Zone in general does fantastic work. One of the best journalistic outlets that exists. But in particular, Ben Norton has done 2 things that I really liked this last week. One, he did an awesome breakdown of how the U.S. is escalating with China via fucking with Taiwan and sending them a whole bunch of weapons. And I did not know much about Taiwan and what we were actually doing there until I watched that video, so I'll post a link to that below. I watched the whole video. It's wonderful. I also reposted it. It was that good. The other one, which is actually the main reason I'm ranking Ben so high, is that he wrote an awesome article on his Substack. It's called Behind NATO's Cognitive Warfare Being Waged by Western Militaries. And in this article, which I will post, he talks about how propaganda is being escalated, and he talks about it and being used in other countries as well. But like the powers that be, the way they utilize propaganda is evolving. And he breaks this down in great detail, and it's a little bit terrifying. And what I would like us to do is learn from great articles like this and good writing like this so that we understand what we're up against. And I understand largely kind of how propaganda works. I read you guys Edward Bernays's Propaganda as the first book club on this show. Norton's article it's terrifying, but wonderful in that it breaks down how Western nations and NATO are evolving their propaganda as we enter a technological age. And we need to understand how that works so that we can combat it. So mad props to Ben Norton. He's been doing great work. He always does great work. But specifically this last week, he's been blowing me away with his work. So good job, Ben. And check out the Gray Zone on YouTube. Number 2, a perennial, is Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald, he does a system update on YouTube, and he writes for Substack. Now, just this week, I recently covered how he was talking about the Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen, and how she was kind of a plant, and how it seemed like Facebook had planted their own Facebook whistleblower basically to get the government to impose sanctions on them, which they themselves could monetarily withstand, whilst it would put sanctions on other large communication outlets that are private companies like Twitter that they could literally never live up to, and therefore it would monopolize Facebook as one of the only remaining platforms that could be used for speech online, along with Google. So that article was wonderful, and it's been covered all over the place. But beyond that, he also he covered the Kabul drone strikes and how the U.S. empire drone struck a whole bunch of people there were 10 civilians, no terrorists whatsoever, under the guise that there was an imminent ISIS-K attack that was going to be carried out at Kabul airport. Glenn broke that down in wonderful detail on his site in an article and in another video about how that wasn't true. He also talked about Havana syndrome and how that's bogus. Havana syndrome is like this new shitty-ass narrative that mainstream media is running with, that it's like a whole bunch of these American diplomats and other diplomats, when they go to other countries who are more communist countries, they suddenly have like these weird brain symptoms and neurologic symptoms that come out of nowhere, and they speculate in this bogus narrative that they're using some sort of like otherworldly or futuristic weapon that uses like sound waves to fuck with your brain. And then Glenn broke it down. He's like, no, it was likely due to actually just crickets, and these people are psychosomatizing fake-ass symptoms. And that means basically placebo effect. Like, psychosomatization means that your brain thinks one way, therefore you manifest certain symptoms. And that's the conclusion that has been come to about Havana syndrome, and Glenn broke that down. And then he also talked about Hunter Biden's laptop. and the New York Post story that has now been vindicated. And now we know that there was some there when it comes to Hunter Biden being on the board of Burisma and getting actual literal emails that prove that he is a vessel for Joe Biden to take money. He is literally used for companies to gain access to Joe Biden when he was vice president. So Glenn's doing great work as usual. He's a heavy hitter, but particularly 4 or 5 different great videos and articles. I highly recommend his show is called System Update. All right, and then the #1 journalist, and this is for something that's coming out and has not yet, but I'm super excited for it, and I've ranked her before, is Abby Martin. Abby Martin she runs the Empire Files, and that's one of the best YouTube channels there is. They don't upload a lot, but what they do upload is always gold. And what I'm ranking her for now is that she has a documentary coming out about climate change and how the military-industrial complex is it's absolutely linked with the destruction of the planet in terms of climate change, and that is called Earth's Greatest Enemy, is what it's called. So I am super excited for this, and she just recently did an interview with the Vanguard on their show, and she does fantastic work. And this documentary, I hope it goes viral, because it's one of those things that if you can open people's eyes to this particular issue, meaning how climate catastrophe is caused by largely corporatocracy, but also the United States military-industrial complex. If we could get simply the U.S. military taken down, or at least, largely removed from the face of the planet, that by itself would be an enormous stepping stone towards avoiding climate catastrophe. So Abby Martin is #1. And I know that this documentary is going to be awesome, and really I'm trying to, boost it as much as I can so that you guys understand that when it comes out, it's definitely worth a watch. So congratulations, guys. Keep fighting the good fight. To recap real quickly, notable mention is Matt Taibbi. #5 is Unapologetic. #4 is Richie Medhurst. #3 is Ben Norton from the Gray Zone. #2 is Glenn Greenwald and his show System Update. And #1 is Abby Martin and the Empire Files. And be sure to check out her upcoming documentary, Earth's Greatest Enemy, coming out pretty soon here. I will post a link to the trailer below. Keep fighting the good fight out there, guys. I'll talk to you later.